You're good? I'm good, all right. You sure about that?
He's taking a lot of punishment to both the body and the head. Left eye completely closed.
Let's stop this thing.
No, let me see the eye. Time! Doc, give him a look.
Show me your eye. Show me your eye, Donuts. How many fingers? How many fingers? How many of them is?
4.
And again.
2. Time in!
All right, breathe through your mouth. Deep breaths, kid. Deep.
You are up on the cards. You're winning this. You are going to win this. But just keep smart and keep away from him. He's going to sleep this time. He's going out this round.
I should have stopped this one with your father. I'm stopping this one now.
Don't, okay? Let me finish. I got to prove it.
Prove what?
I'm not a mistake.
Anyway, I never got a chance to thank Apollo for helping me out after Mickey died. But it's nothing compared to what you've done. You taught me how to fight again, and I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna fight this thing. But if I fight, I want you to fight too. I want you to go across this ring and knock that son of a bitch down. Can you do it? Say it.
I'm going to knock that son of a bitch down.
I know you are. You know why? Because you're a Creed, and I love you, kid.
Go on.
The next handful of minutes, believe it or not, are brought to you by Grapplex. Grapplex, it won't come undone. Or it will. Whatever's sexier.
Hey y'all, this is Grant Fletcher. You can find me on Twitter at Grant L. Fletcher, and thank you for tuning in to episode 27 of the 69-minute Eargasm with the quintessential stud muffin, Joel Gertner. Joel, how are you, man?
Outstanding.
Good, man. That's good to hear it. We're getting closer and closer to Christmas. How ready are you?
I'm getting ready, man. I haven't done my shopping yet, though.
Yeah, what's
the word? I am the absolute categorical worst. I can't tell you how many times I've wound up shopping a day or two before Christmas. I just, the week or two before Christmas just really goes by pretty fast in my world. It just always seems to, because it seems like a couple weeks before Christmas, I'm always thinking this is going to be the year I get it all done on time. I'm going to get it done today. I'm going to get it done now. And then in the blink of an eye, 2 weeks goes by and we're counting the hours. We're not counting the weeks anymore. And it's like,
Yeah, we're kind of like that too. I mean, maybe not, up to the minute, but yeah, my wife and I, we got our daughter MJ out of the way, and then that's really about it, But I'm sure it's feeling like Christmas up there in Brooklyn right about now, huh?
Weather-wise, yeah, we had our first snow. I'm trying to remember. We might have had. I might be confusing things, but we had a couple weeks ago. We had a first snow. There wasn't very much of it. It didn't last very long, but it was a technical first snow. And since then, I want to say maybe closer to a week ago, as we're recording this, we got an inch or less of slush that accumulated on the ground, because it was one of those days where it did kind of snow. It flurried a little bit, but it did so over a temperature of 32 degrees. It seemed like it was closer to 40 or something. So it did not collect. It did not stick. So it was snowing, but it was kind of melting as it was hitting the ground. But there was enough of it that, instead of it just becoming completely a non-entity when it hit the ground or becoming completely wet, it did stay a little bit slushy, and it gave us like maybe a half inch, 3/4 of an inch of slush.
That's nice.
But it is feeling it. Yeah, it's kind of cold. I think this coming week, there's going to be one day where it's like a high around 60. And then 2 days later, there's going to be another day where it's a high around 29. So we're feeling it a little bit.
That's nice. As we're recording this right now, it is 70 degrees in Baton Rouge.
Gosh, really? You guys are still getting 70?
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of, here's what happens. Here's what winter in Louisiana is like. It'll be like 70, might get up to the high 70s, maybe even low 80s sometimes. And then like a few days later, it'll be 30. It's really weird. It's really bizarre. It kind of goes all over the place. You can't ever really get used to it, and it doesn't stay cold for very long. And like on the odd year, like once every 4 or 5 years, whenever it does snow a little bit, and it is that, slushiness that you talk about, everything shuts down everything shuts down. You can't go anywhere. They shut down the interstates. Nobody goes to work. It is the most insane thing. You would think the world was ending whenever it snows here every now and then. I mean, we don't know what to do with it.
That's so weird.
I mean, it could be worse. Could be worse. But, yeah, I always say, like, we don't have seasons in Louisiana as far as the weather changes. We have food seasons, right? So we have king cake season. We have crawfish season. We have gumbo season, that kind of stuff. And some of them sort of overlap.
I love it. Hey, you haven't lost me yet. I'm still listening. I love it. I think I had my first piece of king cake ever at the airport. I had airport king cake. And it wasn't any worse for wear, man. I loved it. It was still good.
Yeah, a lot of people down here turn their nose up at king cake depending upon where it's from. Like, people are very loyal to where they get their king cake from. And if you're not familiar with king cake, go check it out. Look it up. It's like it's a Mardi Gras cake is what a lot of people call it. But it's a king cake. There's a little plastic baby in there somewhere. So there's a choking hazard, which means there's a chance of dying. But it's really good, so it's worth it.
Tons of choking hazards where you're from, man, because those beads you don't want to ingest those either.
Yeah, and plus, because king cake season is coming up really soon, if you're interested out there, you can always look up bakeries down in New Orleans. They'll ship them to you as well, so they're pretty easy to come by as far as, like, authentic Louisiana food goes. But, I digress. I think we got a lot more important things to talk about than food on this episode. For instance, I'd be remiss if we did not take time to thank our main sponsor, Grapplex, and the man behind Grapplex, the fugitive Ray Dacron, ex-convict Ray Dacron. I don't know about his status right now. We're supposed to get you an actual update on that before the end of the year. That's what we're trying for, at least.
Yeah, I still haven't heard from him. I'm still assuming that he is swimming that river that connects Shawshank Prison to freedom. Not quite Shawshank Prison, because it seemed like a lot of people in there were actually morally upstanding, whereas necessarily not so much. He's I try to straddle that line because we've got that press thing where we're not allowed to talk about, we're also contractually obligated to talk about Ray Dacron and Grapplex. So I never know exactly what he would be proud of me saying, what he would be litigious about, what you never know. But he's a unique he's an individual, man. He's somebody.
Yeah, he's an individual.
I don't know. I almost flubbed and said he's a somebody. I don't know if but he's somebody though.
He is somebody, and he did gift us with an early Christmas gift in a very large shipment of Grapplex t-shirts to the warehouse. So they are still available at prowrestlingtees.com/Joel Gertner. Pick up a raw red Grapplex shirt.
He must be alive. Or somebody's doing his bidding.
Yeah. Well, he's got two sisters, right? He's got his sisters, Polly and Esther.
And Esther. Right? He's got sisters, Polly and Esther. Right. They picked up the scissors at an earth. Right. Yep.
Yeah, I know they're the seamstresses. I don't know what else they do. It's a family business, though. It's a family business.
Well, yep. Yeah.
Not unlike the mafia, but I digress. Anyway, but they do keep us on the air so that we can bring you these great episodes like this one today with a guest who, to say they've done it all would be an understatement.
Right. So our guest this week is, a lot of our guests, we talked about this last week, a lot of our guests really thorough, really, they get into detail. They have diverse, not just careers, but lives. And they just really have interesting signature stories to tell. And if that's what you listen to the Eargasm for, number one, you're in the right place. Number two, you're not going to be disappointed this week.
Yeah, for sure. This guy had he had a lot to talk about, man. This is an extra-sized interview. It's an Eargasm extra for our listeners out there.
It is indeed an Eargasm extra. And I'll let you give the name of our guest, who was really, really gracious enough to spend a lot of time with us, a little bit of extra time with us, really go into detail and really tell us about his life, about his career. He shared a lot. It was a lot of fun. And now over to you for this week's intro.
Well, I can't wait for everybody out there to hear it. Before we get into it, guys, make sure you subscribe, make sure you review, make sure you drop us a rating. Follow us on Twitter. Joel is at StudMuffinSays. I am at Grant L. Fletcher. Check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/69minuteorgasm. And this is Elijah Burke.
And we are back with more 69-minute eargasm. Our guest this week, His Holiness, with all of the reverence due him, this is not just going to be your standard garden variety, run-of-the-mill, every week eargasm like you regularly have, but this is also going to be a religious experience as we talk with a man who is very experienced and well-versed in and throughout professional wrestling for what I know is going to be a diverse, deep dive into his life and his career, and we may even hear a few things that you might not usually hear. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the one and the only, the Black Pope, Elijah Burke. Elijah, what's going on, man?
What's up, Dad? It's good to finally come on board, if you will, with the quintessential one. And I got to say, man, well, it's about time.
Oh my gosh. I feel flattered, and when it comes out the mouth of the Black Pope, man, I feel blessed. So thank you for that, dude. I appreciate it more than you know. Man, I think I want to begin kind of where we always begin, and that's at the beginning, because, and I point it out almost every week, so it's going to sound cliche to the regular listeners, but most of the people on the show, we have comedians on, we have musicians, but 8 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10, we're having people with direct relevance and direct kind of involvement in the professional wrestling business. And it's people who, by hook or by crook, one way or another, whether they grew up following it and being a super fan or not, they find their way, and wrestling is what they become. So it's something, for all the wrestling people on the show, it's something that we all do share. But how we get there is a lot more unique. It's like snowflake. It's like fingerprint. It really is something that is just us, and nobody else can lay claim to exactly how we became who we are, who we were. And that's kind of where I want to dial it back to, if you don't mind, is tell us about young Elijah. Tell us about you growing up, being a kid, wrestling-wise and otherwise. And let us know, as it pertains to wrestling, let us know if you watched and were into it before you got into it. Let us know kind of whereabouts geographically that was, what years we're thinking about, what your first exposure to professional wrestling was. But also, Elijah, just let us know kind of what made you tick growing up and who you were outside of professional wrestling.
Well, I think when you and thank you for the continual run-on sentence of questions. I'll try to keep all of that in mind as I dive into answering them. So if Pope happens to forget a question or two, we can always come back around to it, big guy. But I think, I'm an 80s baby. So the 80s is and the 90s, but the 80s, when it comes to professional wrestling, is really, it's that groundbreaking moment of realization as a young Pope, young Elijah Burke, that you go, man, this is magical. And that all starts with at 3-4 years old, sitting, not on daddy's knee per se, but at his feet as he sat in the recliner, we would just sit on the floor and we would watch that 19-inch television that had the, when the antennas was broke, we put a coat hanger on it so that you can get better reception. But it was my father. It was Papa Pope, man, that really, I think, paved the way in the sense of me having interest or even becoming interested in watching wrestling, because it was something that he always did. It was like a family thing, man. It's crazy that 6:05 Eastern Time or 9:05 in the morning on TBS, and being down in Florida, we often, we got the Georgia Championship Wrestling. We had Florida Championship Wrestling. We had the, World Class Wrestling would often, air in our market down in Jacksonville. So we always, man, that was the one thing that we looked for. There were two things that we did as a family all the time. I mean, hell, we didn't really eat as a family. Now, I know you may say that's crazy. Some of us ate when dinner was cooked, it was time to eat. But it wasn't all of us sitting at a table like as you used earlier, the run-of-the-mill family. Yeah, we took our food and we went to each his own. And, sometimes I ate in the room, sometimes I ate in the living room in front of the TV, wherever we chose. So, but the two things that we did together as a family and always look forward to doing was, one, going to church together. Sundays were family day. That was it. And normally on Sundays after church, it was going to Ryan's or Quincy's, if you're familiar with those. It's like an all-you-can-eat buffet. It's what Golden Corral would later become. So we would look forward to those because, Papa had cash, man. He was strapped. So we would hope that he would get touched, if you will, in a special way while he was in service, so he'd feel good enough to come out and take us to a buffet. and you better eat. You better eat too. So and that's the interesting part. My dad, man, the interesting dynamic about him, and probably the way I became because of him when it comes to the charitable things that I do with my charity, which we'll talk about later. But I don't believe in wasting food because of that man. We went to all-you-can-eat buffets, and if we loaded our plates and came back to the table, and you were 60, 70% done with the food that you had on your plate and you're full, he made us digest, drink some water, you're going to finish what's on your plate. There's too many starving people out here in the world for you to go get food and waste it, even though it was all you can eat. So I'm like that today. And I'll get back to the 6:05 and all that stuff. But I'm like that today. Even when I go on dates or whatnot, me and an ex-girlfriend of mine, we almost ran into an issue. It's like, hey, I'm spending my money and you're not going to take a bite out of that and say you're done. Let's eat. Okay, we're not going to waste this. We're not throwing it away. And that came from my old man. Something that's just been instilled in me. But so coming out of the woods now, we love going to church together. And the other thing that we did as a family, outside of my mom, of course, was me and my brothers and my dad. When it was time for 6:05, we are there. We are coming from outside. In the morning, on Saturday mornings, it was not going outside and play until the NWA was done. So needless to say, I was a huge, huge NWA fan coming up. And I think anyone who has followed my career in the world of wrestling, they know of the influence that the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, had on this little black Afro head boy from Jacksonville, Florida. And I often tell people from time to time that you got to understand why the Dream was so impactful on the life of a young Elijah Burke. It was because during those days, yes, there were Ernie Lads. Yeah, there were Iceman King Parsons, Pistol Pez. Yeah, we had those. But what we didn't have, not leaving out Soul Man and Tony Atlas, there were notable African-American stars in wrestling. But we didn't have that dominant black champion, someone who was a draw, as we come to know, as being performers in the business, who was involved in continually highlighted angles and whatnot. But so we didn't have that, but we did have it, and for us, we had it in a form of a 300+ pound, birthmark bellied, blue-eyed, blonde-haired, bleach blonde at times, if you will, American Dream Dusty Rhodes. So I will often joke and I would tell people they don't understand. I'm watching NWA and I'm seeing Polo Rocket King get the snot beat out of him every week by the Horsemen and whoever else. And it just, we didn't have anybody to gravitate to give us hope until I was sitting there and I saw Dusty talking to that camera. And he said, my hand, right now, America, I want you to reach out, touch my hand as I reach out and touch yours. And I was like that little white girl from Poltergeist as I ran to that television and I thought he could feel my hand. So, yeah. So that, that right there, man, those days, the love and the compassion that the man, the myth, the dream, if you will, was able to convey from the slip of a tongue, if you will, how he was able to talk people, what we don't see today. What we don't see today, again, I'm going in the woods, but I promise you I'll come back out. It's like today's world of wrestling. Joel, this is probably going to be one of the most easiest interviews for you because you ain't going to have to do much because you get Pope started and that's all you got to do is sit back and enjoy the ride. All right, dang. But today, Daddy, we don't have individuals, and if we do have them, we'll never know because they're so heavily produced. But for the most part, those that aren't produced, if they were given a microphone, they're not able to talk you into wanting to come see. They can do all the most impressive moves. They can do all the flips. They can't be, and this is not a fluff moment. This is a truth moment. Pope has been known to say oftentimes in almost every wrap-up interview or promo that he does, I always remind the people that I am the most charismatic, pimptacular, hand-clapping, foot-tapping, pimp-slapping, blinking the tie, always on fire. And if I want to throw something else up in the middle of that right there, before I say Pope Elijah Burke, I do that. Now, Joel, where do you think that came from? Who do you think had an influence enough to give Pope a run-on type catchphrase that he would go on to use at what I would like to call the height of my career?
My gosh. If I'm being completely honest and utterly humble, I would say you being from the great Sunshine State of Florida, it would have to be none other than superstar Billy Graham.
Absolutely not. It was Joel Gertner.
Oh, my gosh.
Absolutely. Being in the Sunshine State, man. No. You're not going to, you may think and take this as a fluff moment, but I'm not fluffing you. Being in the Sunshine State, the one thing that we got on, what was the name of that channel? I believe it was Sun something.
Yep.
It was Sunshine Channel. You guys. I was watching ECW, and that's where Tommy Dreamer became my other favorite as the Dreamer, as part of the Dream and loving the Dream, and you see that stuff. So, so I'm watching ECW, You know, here I coming up as well in the late 90s. You guys was airing late on our channels, and I was able to watch that on the Sunshine Channel. And even when you guys went on in ECW to go to greater fame or whatnot, it was the constant entertaining value that you yourself had on the microphone that gave me the idea to put a phrase like that together. Absolutely, that I could interject and change and add to and use at any moment that I choose to use it. So that was partially, you were partially and should be credited for that. You were credited because that's what gave me the idea. Obviously, the rap itself is, again, going back to Dusty, and again, superstar Billy Graham. I always thought those two. I could never figure out who rapped like it first, but nobody rapped better than the Dream at that time. But he gave us some hope, man. And I would tell people he was the closest thing to a black champion that we had at that time. You know, being that there wasn't a black world champion. And I always laugh and I tell people that and they get a giggle out of it, but that was just the truth. And so the Dream is what inspired me to become to seek and to dream of being a professional wrestler, entertainer, a talker. Man, I told you about us going to church and everything as a young kid. I would have $1 to take up to the offering table. Here's my other influence. I would take $1 around and, give up, into the collection plate. And when I turned to walk back to my seat, I'd be walking down the aisle doing the Ric Flair strut in church, in church, man. So obviously Ric Flair and the Horsemen as a whole, they were the other half of that equation. The lifestyles of the rich and famous, if you will, the way, and again, I can go on a tangent from this, the way that man lived the gimmick. He lived it. Who the hell is Richard Flair? Nobody knows. Who cares? Nobody. Because Ric Flair became so big as the enigma that he was and that he still is to this day. Only today, only in today's world, only in nature continuing to have its run of the mill, if you will, of all of our legends and all of our great athletes as they continue to battle nature and the aging process. Only now have, I think, for the most part, certainly the fans have looked at Ric Flair as being mortal. And yeah, we all know that none of us are here forever. But with the recent health scares and everything, now you look at Ric Flair, shoot, he's a man. He's just like everybody else. And where you once may have thought that he was inferior. Listen, the man done got struck by lightning. He done crashed. I think he said he got struck by lightning twice. He done came back from death, death door. And so it is just amazing. But Ric Flair, even today, is inspiring a whole new generation of fans, even today. And so it goes without saying the impact that he's had on my life. It was a matter of the way I also wanted to mold myself after him. So when I became the Pope, and we'll come out of the woods and I'll toss it back to you and we can go back. But when I became the Pope, I took pride in my character, as I did before, but when I became the Pope, it was a different ball game than just being Elijah Burke. I took pride. I had to pay extra money to travel with that freaking Pope jacket. And, I had a separate bag for it, a travel bag for it. And it's like, man, it's costing me money, extra money I got to pay to take this, but it's who I am now. It's part of my gimmick, and cool. I'm going to do it. When I go to get rental cars. When I go to these places, guys were, getting 3, 4, 5 in a Hyundai Sonata, and not Pope. Because Pope is not, I just took too much pride. I go out there and get one of the luxury vehicles because if somebody see Pope leaving the arena, they're going to see Pope styling and profiling again, thanks to Ric Flair, on that end. So those are the guys that inspired me for the most part as a kid coming up. And you can interject the question or Pope can keep going.
No, I mean, so it's obvious, you're in Jacksonville, and like you say, you're inspired by guys like Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair. You're watching TBS, you're watching Florida, you're watching Georgia. So the NWA influence, it's apparent, it's obvious. I guess so. The next follow-up question would be, how did you get started in the wrestling business? What else were you thinking about maybe doing? If wrestling didn't pan out, or did you have a career while or before wrestling, but kind of, what was your first territory? What was life like on the indies for you? Who trained you? That kind of thing.
And, just listening to you ask these questions, it's like, you know what? This is Joe Gertner. Is it any, if it wasn't apparent before, why you had those long run-on catchphrases in ECW. If it was not apparent why you had that then, it's certainly apparent now. Because you might as well, brother, just say everything at one time and we'll go with it. But no.
I appreciate you, man.
Just having fun here, man. But here, I'm gonna back up some to try to follow all of that, which you were again, your gift of entertainment was simply you on the microphone, man. I mean, some people got that gift and others don't. But I'll go back to saying it again. It is imperative, maybe not with the WWE today because the machine sells itself. So if people want to buy, they're going to buy. They're going to watch, they're going to watch. It's amazing that, WrestleMania sells out even before the card is announced. So it doesn't matter anymore up there because the machine is ahead of everybody else. Whereas before, we know back in the day, the machine, somebody had to be out front pulling the machine. Somebody had to be the face of it. Somebody had to be driving it. Right now, the machine's on autopilot and everybody just goes along for the ride. So your work that you did and at the time that you were doing it, it helped people. I know for a fact because I was one of them that said, man, I got to see him get his, you know what I'm saying, or see what happens. It's just freaking entertaining, man. Just entertaining. But to answer your question,
the love, man. I do appreciate it.
No problem, man. To answer your question, when I was a kid, and we were doing the DARE programs. I don't know if they do those anymore, but I know you remember the DARE programs, the police officers, career days, and all that stuff in school. To say no to drugs, war that they had waged against, the drugs and the campaign that they had. I remember in elementary, we would have those days and people would say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And, guys, girls, they would say doctors and they would say lawyers and some would say, I want to be a teacher, and some would say, I want to be a fireman. And when they got to me, my crazy, out of this world thinking, my butt, I stand there and I go, I want to be a wrestler. Oh, well, that's good. There's a lot of, you can go to college and no. You're not, I want to be a wrestler. What do you mean a wrestler? I want to be a wrestler like the ones you see on TV. And I remember getting hot about it. And they go, no, you can't. You can't do that. That's not a career. That's not something that you got to go to college and you got to do this, you got to do that. Okay, well, I went to college and I got my degrees and all that, but I wanted to be what inspired me, kept me entertained, because I just simply wanted to entertain people. And so I would get laughed at. When that time came, I would get laughed at, and some people was, thought I was joking or whatnot. And truth be told, that was my dream. That wasn't a goal. It was a dream. And a lot of people have dreams, and they believe that dreams are supposed to be just that, dreams. It's something that you always wish to obtain. And as long as you have that in front of you, you'll always be a dreamer. But most they don't have the belief that they'll actually achieve that dream. So they have goals. And I had goals. And my immediate goal as I progress throughout my academic levels in school, it was just to get out of school. I just wanted to graduate. I needed to get the diploma to make sure that Mama Pope and Papa Pope would be proud, and that I wouldn't be a failure, because I began to struggle. I was fighting a lot in not just high school, but elementary. High school, I kind of simmered down some, but elementary, if we had an issue, let's solve it right now. And just so you know, I fought girls as well as the guys. If a girl hit me, I hit her back. That's just how it was back then. I don't believe anybody should put their hands on anybody. Unwillingly, I don't care who you are. If you're a woman, you shouldn't punch a man in his face and expect him not to hit you back. Should a man do it? I guess not. That's the way society is set up. But I was in the second grade, and this bully, she was about, if she was Dusty and I was Rocky King, that was the size difference. And she came over and she was telling me what I was going to do and what I wasn't going to do, and stood in my face, and she hit me. And without thinking, immediately, it was a spear to the ground before the spear became a thing. And we went tussling and rolling down the hill, because our classroom was sitting on the way it was set up right then, and you had the little reservoir where the water drains and all that. We went tumbling down, and my teacher came over, "Get up, little sissy boy, you don't fight girls, Well, hey, she hit me first, and I was raised, if somebody hit you, you hit them back." And that's what I did, and felt bad that I had to, put it to her or whatnot. But at the same time, I'm not finna sit here and let a girl pummel me. And I've tried not to, I've tried to do everything I could to walk away. I thought by now, I'm going in the woods, but I'll come back out. On that subject, I thought by now, especially with who's in the White House, I thought by now that a law would have been implemented to protect men from abuse of the system by women. There are so many, and we're going to get to because I'm going to jump a little ahead here, because I was in law enforcement, and I was in corrections. I worked in the jails, and I saw where so many guys, because they are the man, and they're scratched up, and they've gotten beat. I mean, black eye or busted lip, but the woman called the police, and the man didn't. Or the man called the police, and when they got there, she said he did this, and yet there's nothing of evidence to say so, and we had to lock the guy up and let the judge decide. Like, how unfair is that? And I thought by now that maybe something would have been implemented law wise that the guy got what's the guy name Travis Travis something, the recent football player that got stabbed and nearly died as he was in a altercation with his girlfriend. And they arrested her for attempted murder because they didn't think he was going to make it, Joel. It's a former Pittsburgh player, Pittsburgh Steelers player, I think. But they didn't think he was going to make it. He was on his deathbed. Family and friends were called, and they were told to gather around because they didn't think the guy was going to survive being stabbed in the chest twice by his loving girlfriend. So they arrested her, and then as soon as the guy pulled through, and was able to have his whereabouts, they still had to arrest him. So as soon as he gets out of ICU and he's able, he has to go down and turn himself in and get his mug shot and all that other stuff done. The question would be, and I know, again, I'm in the woods, but I'm coming out. The question would be, if this woman has no substantial physical damage to her being, of self-evidence, even if there is a scratch on her arm, is that cause to bring the guy in who got stabbed? I don't know if it is. I'm not saying it is or isn't. I'm just posing a question. If she had time to get a knife and stab him, she certainly had time to get away. So that's being a former law enforcement officer, which I'll get to. That's the type of stuff that always bothered me. And as I said, during those times, if a guy, they would say, hey, if you had time to do this to the guy, they would say, you could have got in your car and you could have left. I said, well, why am I going to leave my house? I told her to leave. Well, you could have left. But this is my house. And they still got to arrest him. But going back now, I had to talk about that doggone fight, and it took me all the way into this. Good Lord. What a downer. What a downer. So as I got up and worried about making sure Mama Pope and Papa Pope are proud of their son and looking like I wasn't going to, I tried playing football. I even played soccer. And none of those things would last because Pope was not academically achieving the success that he was supposed to in the books. So none of that would last, you know. So finally, I got it together in high school. And in high school, I've told this story before, I would walk around, man. In high school, they used to call me a Rev. They used to call me Rev, and they used to call me the Nature Boy. Now, some called me Rev because I would actually always have my Bible with me. And I would like to read my Bible when I was on the bus, and I would read my Bible when it was lunchtime. And sometimes I had a group where we would just get together and do a little Bible study in our 30 to 45 minutes, share some encouraging words with each other. But others who knew my love of professional wrestling, they would call me the Nature Boy. And so, and it always got to me that there was a black Nature Boy before I was. Scoot Andrews, if you're listening,
yes, sir.
Out you, okay? But
yes, sir.
Yeah, so I was always like, Scoot, you know. But and Scoot certainly left a mark, made his own mark as well. But that's what they would call me. And the reason they called me that, do you know, in high school, I walked around if I didn't have it pinned to my shirt, I would always have it in my pocket. If I didn't have a pocket in my top shirt, I would put it in my pants pocket. I had 2 pictures. One of the pictures that I would carry with me every day in high school was a heart-shaped picture of Mama Pope. And I still have it to this day. As a matter of fact, it's in my office. I'm looking at it right now. I would keep Mama Pope in my top pocket of my shirt, close to my heart. Some may go, oh, well, Pope's a mama boy. And you know what? I'm probably I'm not a mama's boy. I just love my mama. That's my mama. And I realized even back then how special I was to be born from that woman, Mama Pope, who could have easily flushed me down the toilet like so many others, or thrown me in a dumpster like so many others. And the things that she has done in my lifetime for my benefit and my brothers and my sister, oh man. So I just learned to appreciate my mother at such a, I ain't gonna say a young age, because I was bad as hell. And so when I got it together, it's like, man, I've been putting this woman through this, and she's all kinds of great. And everybody that ever met my mother, guys living better than my friends. They're living better. They're in 2-story houses. Their dad's a fire chief, and they're making, and you know, you go to their house and it's like, wow. And here's my house, and it's a shack under a tree, but yet they want to be in the position that I am. Not because we have better things material-wise, but because we have a better foundation. Because they were able to get a glimpse of Mama Pope being a mother. And that's the type of mother they wish they had, even though they had the things that I wish I had. Good Lord, you know, got me preaching on here, son. So I was carrying that picture around of Mama Pope. And like I said, I still have it right here on my desk today. And the other picture I had in my pocket, and you're not going to believe this, but again, it's right here on my desk. I'm to this day. You want to guess what picture that is? A picture of who? Take a wild guess.
Was it Nature Boy Ric Flair?
Wow. You got it on the money. You must have heard one of my past interviews or something. Yep. It's the picture of Ric Flair in the ring posing before his 1998 Starrcade match with Eric Bischoff. When he came out in that new gladiator type robe. And was that? I guess it was 97. But yeah, because that was my last. It was 97. But whatever the case was, whenever you wore it, I would keep that picture with me, and I was walking around with it. Probably had it in my pocket when I became an officer. So straight out of high school, I graduate, and I had no per se straight path to anything. I didn't know what I was going to do at the point of graduation. I was just happy to graduate. Only worked. I worked at one job, and when going to look for a car, for my first car, which I still have to this day. If you haven't picked up on, I'm a very sentimental person, but I still have my first car. And Papa Pope, my dad, took me to this car lot, and I saw this Camaro, and I wanted it, and we checked it out, and the car salesman came out, and he was trying to, do what they do. And my dad, who was a car salesman of his own, ran his own automotive business, and from amazing story about him, but I don't have time. But from the bottom to the top, man. And so the car salesman tried to do his thing, and my dad said, "Well, son, I'm gonna let you handle this." And I went to talking to the man and saying what I knew, because I got this ace in my pocket, which was my dad who dealt with cars, and we already know what's what and what type of shape it's in because we're out there running it, looking at it under the hood, testing the pipes. And I didn't end up getting a car. I wasn't sold on it the way that I should have been. And so the car salesman, who happened to be the manager of the spot, he said, do you mind if I talk to your son for a second? He said, no problem. He said, I mean, you can stay here, but where do you work? And I said, well, I'm actually up the street doing, this little job. I'm straight out of high school. He said, man, I would love to have you work here. Like, you have everything. Like, you almost no-sold me on a car that I'm trying to sell. He said you have a gift. Yeah, and he said, man, you're young, you're good looking, you got a smile that'll draw people in off the streets, and so I work. I love dressing and I love dressing up. I have never, nor will I ever, Loris will. I would never be one of those. I'm not a guy that construction's not for me. Being out there in the sun. Is not for me. It's just not for me. So I was very excited to have the opportunity to sit behind a desk and have my own office. And so I did that for a little bit. And finally, I knew that it wasn't going to be something long-term for me. My sister, my grandfather, they both were in law enforcement. My sister was a sergeant. And she said, why don't you, go to the police academy? They're hiring. And I decided to follow in her footsteps. And so that's what I did. And she a great inspiration to me as well. And so I went on and I enrolled in the police academy, and I went on into corrections. And that was my start of my career in law enforcement. And being in law enforcement, as I said, I saw a lot of things. I started college again. I restarted college while I was in law enforcement to finish my degree because I wanted to cross over to the streets. So you got to cross over, and when you get in correction, sometimes people think that it's easy to get to the street, but they want to keep as many people there as possible. So I crossed over. I went to college, finished my degree. And one day, while booking someone into intake, is called. Intake is where you take in criminals and you process them into the facility. And while that was going on, the intake and booking area was super crowded. I don't know what was going on particularly that day, but we had a lot of people that were, waiting to be processed into the county jail. And so I decided, we may have just gotten an upgrade in the computers. I'm not sure, but I decided, well, let me burn some time and get on the computer. I got on the computer. And as soon as the computer, before I could navigate, and I tell people all the, I told the story many times. I still think it was those bulk computers that you used to play the little X snake game on. You remember that snake game where it was a bunch of X's and it gets longer and longer and you got to try to keep navigating on the screen and not hit it. Okay, yeah. But I want to say maybe we had just got our first upgrade. I'm not sure. But before I could even navigate, there was a banner, like a rectangular banner that popped up on the screen. And it said, first ever OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling Tryout Camp, WWE Tryout Camp. And I was floored, like, what is going on here? Like, what? Like, I'm looking around, everybody's minding their own business, but I'm looking around like, is this a joke? Like, I just hit the lottery without even scratching off the ticket. you know? So I'm like, what is going on? And I click on it, and it starts detailing, the 1 week tryout and who's, Jim Cornette and all the people that's going to be there and your opportunity, and they're accepting 50 applicants, first come, first serve, or whatever the case may be. And so I printed it out. Right then and there. I took the form home, and I filled it out, and I put it in the mail ASAP. I said, hey, I got to get a picture. I had my best friend. I think I already had a couple of pictures because I was boxing. And I'll back up and get to that if you want to know about it. You can ask that question, but I ain't here to box. I'm here to wrestle. So I had a couple of pictures already, and I think I put it in and I sent it along with the form. And I continued working, man. I'm one of those people, if you haven't noticed by yet, like I just got this unimaginable, huge faith that everything that is for me is for me. And that's just the type of person that I am. That's how I was raised. And it's always, it has not failed me personally yet. And lo and behold, man, I got accepted. I got a letter back saying, in February of 2003, I believe, say you've been accepted into the first ever Ohio Valley Wrestling Tryout Camp. And I remember running through the house. I couldn't breathe. I was jumping up and down. I didn't know what, I was in a panic because I was so excited, because I always felt if I had the opportunity, I just need somehow to get my foot in the door. Me and my best friend, his name is JoJo. He's a 6'5", 300 pounds, size 15 shoe size wearing, real life, walking, talking, fire breathing redneck. And me and him, our love for wrestling was so strong that we wanted to pursue it together, and we just could never figure out how. And when I finally figured out how, because I would look at the Inside Wrestling magazines and The Wrestler and Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and I would go to all those magazines in the stores. Miss those days. But I finally saw the Funkin' Conservatory in Ocala, Florida. And I said, hey man, we got to do this. Let's do it. And he couldn't get his money together. And obviously I had money to do it. But sometimes when you're making a jump of any nature, sometimes you kind of want to jump with someone, especially when you're jumping into the unknown. Hence Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, I'd assume. But it's kind of was like that. He was my Kevin Nash. I was like, hey man, let's do this together. But it never panned out that way. So when the OVW tryout thing happened, man, I was like, I cannot miss out on this opportunity. I'm gonna throw caution to the wind, and I'm gonna see what happens. And when I got the letter back saying that you're accepted, I just knew that things were going to work out. So fast forward, I go up to Ohio Valley Wrestling in Louisville, Kentucky. Jim Cornette, my grandpapa, Danny Davis, I always call him the Grand Wizard behind the curtain. He was he came to me. I did the tryout. The first person I got in the ring with, wrestling-wise, the first person that decided to take a chance on me and walk me through some stuff in the ring, wrestling-wise, was the fallen angel, Christopher Daniel. I'll never forget it. And I'm like, whoa, no, I'm not finna get in here with you. Like, no, you'll be fine, man. Come on, doctor. He's like, you'll be fine. And so, I could barely, they taught me how to run the ropes. God knows I wasn't going to throw a punch. Being a boxer, I was so afraid to throw a punch, especially when I first started, because, the last thing you want to do is hit somebody and hit them wrong and knock them out, or have to knock them out, because now you got a problem with them. So I did everything that they asked, and I didn't do much. I showed them that I knew nothing. And because I showed them that I knew nothing, and I had a good look, and I didn't have an issue talking, I wasn't shy in the least bit. I stayed up there for the week, did what I had to do with the 50 other people that were, or 49 other people that were up there, went back to work. And then sometime around June, I believe, I got a call. And I told this story before. Me and my ex were sitting in that Camaro that I told you about, the one that I eventually got. We're sitting on the dock of the bay, just killing time. We done spent some time together. We done went and ate something, and now I pulled up to the dock of the bay, and we just kind of put the seats back, loving on each other, and then falling asleep on each other, I guess, because my phone rang, and I thought I was dreaming, but it was Jim Cornette. I said, hello? It's Elijah. I said, hello? Elijah, can you hear me? Hey, I'm going to call you back. I'll get to a place where you can hear me. So I closed my flip phone up. Yep, that's how long ago it was. It was the flip phone. And I got out my car, and I told my girl, I said, hey, I think this was OVW. And I got out the car, and I waited, and the phone rang again. And I answered the phone, and it was Jim Cornette. Elijah, how you doing, my boy? Hey, listen, I know you got this great career. I know you're taking care of your sister's kids, and I know you just brought your mom a nice house. I can't promise you that you're going to get hired if you come back up here, but I can almost guarantee you if you come back up here to train, you're going to get hired. And I did just that. 5 years in, 2 days, 3 days, 2 days before my 5th year anniversary, I was supposed to get this nice jump and pay and get my little 5-year pin from JSO. I again, that leap of faith, man, I went with it. And to answer your question about my territory, what territory did I work first? OVW was my territory.
It's amazing, man. Not everybody can say that. It's amazing. It's a testament, and it's amazing that you started out right in the WWE system. At the time, did you think about that at all? If so, did you regret not being on the indies, or were you happy that, the first taste you were getting was kind of where a lot of people would eventually love to be? Like, what was your take on it at the time?
I was always in a state of, I don't want to say disbelief, but gratefulness. Because the fact that I didn't know, I didn't tell you the other stuff, but, Cornette, when he talks to you, he can talk to you in such a way that he's cutting a scathing promo on you, but yet somehow you end up feeling that it needed to be said and you're okay with it. You don't know a headlock from a wrist lock, but but you got something, and that's kind of the stuff that he was saying to me. You look like an athlete. We know you're a former boxer, and we can train you, and that's what we want. We don't want someone that, half of the guys sent pictures that were so old and they were jacked, and then they showed up and they were, not exactly what the picture had depicted of them. So I was very happy and fortunate and grateful to have come up in the OVW system because I was able to be, in a sense, taught correctly. I was able to be taught correctly. And so I don't regret not being on the engine. I never thought about it. I just again, I felt fortunate. Like, wow, I'm here. I am at WWE's developmental system, and I am knocking on the door. And I'm looking at all these guys that will go on to be stars and become stars and share, that stage that is WWE with me, the Johnny Nitro and Mercury and, Shad Gaspard and JTG and Jillian Hall and Melina and Beth Phoenix and Aaron the Idol Stevens. And I'm working with your boy Nova. You know what I'm saying? So I'm looking at all of this. And I'm like, my goodness, like I'm here. And so I again, I can't say how fortunate enough I felt I was to have that opportunity. And I just wanted to make the most of it. Now, after being up in WWE on the road and, being on SmackDown and being switched to ECW from SmackDown, I wish after my time with WWE, I had it. Like I was, I was complimented. I was praised for having it and understanding it. But that was because, again, I was brought up in their system and I was trained. But man, I wish that I had it, and I think we all would say that in a sense, the understanding of it more so then than I do now, because the game for me could have been so much different. And I tried once I got it, and I knew I had it. Again, the understanding. Once I began to understand how things worked up there, that's when I went for the change. Hey man, I got something here. I want to do something with the Pope. I want to do something. And they listened to me and they heard me, and I'm saying, I got something here. I want to do this, And I was doing promos for it. I'm trying to detail and describe to them exactly what the Black Pope, who the Black Pope is and whatnot. And I only chose the Black Pope because I was the first of my kind. Okay. I'm looking at, I'm doing this website on www.com/ECW, and I'm doing this forum, whatever it's called, where I'm doing this column weekly where I'm writing myself. I love to write, and I'm writing, and I'm entertaining people through my writing, and they're emailing my email. And it just so happens that one after another, they started figuring out, oh my God, this is actually you. Because, whenever stars, even then when they had these little things, well, it was this WWE creative website team that are actually handling everything. It's not really, that star's words. They might get some excerpts from them, but you email and stuff, it's actually them. And they were going to do that for me. And I said, no, man, I got it. Like, I want them to send it to my email. Okay. All right. You're going to have a lot of stuff, but that's pretty cool, man. We never saw somebody so invested. And, it was like, I couldn't believe what people would start responding and sending me and asking me for leadership and guidance and motivation and whatever it may have been, for prayer, like the things. And I remember talking, I won't go into it, but it was just so much stuff. So getting to how the Black Pope became about, I said to myself, man, I got to figure out a way these people are like a congregation. What would I be? Well, I can't be a reverend because we've already had Reverend Devon. I'm just sick of old Reverend Devon, the Reverend stuff being attached to Black guys. So I didn't want to be a brother because we got the brother love and I'm like, I can't even be a deacon. Then I did Deacon Bautista. Got you had the Reverend Slick. What can I be that's going to separate me from all of that play, on religious terms? And so as I was thinking about it, I said, well, God dang, man, out of all the popes, there's never been a Black one. And thus the Black Pope was born.
So now instead of a corrections officer, now you are the Black Pope. Was there like an epiphany, a moment of clarity? Was there ever a time, and do you remember what it might have been, where you had a heart-to-heart with yourself and you said to yourself, I know I made the right decision. I know this was worthwhile. I know that stepping away from corrections and stepping into pro wrestling was absolutely the right thing to do.
That moment was that moment was when I did the first amateur match at OVW was with another name you might be familiar with, Alejandro Estrada. The old assassin, the old daddy assassin. Yeah, he was called the Assassin back then during our first amateur match, and me and him had to team up, and I was like, okay, we did our thing, and we had fun. You know, it was interesting. But after the second match, the second amateur show that I was a part of, I requested a singles. I really wanted to be a singles, star, have a singles match, because in a singles match, I can show more character and I can control it more. I can have better input and, it's just better. You can better tell a story, better get yourself over and all the other stuff that comes with it. So, I changed my look up. Easy Money, man, I'm throwing a lot of names, Easy Money made my first paid for ring gear. And yeah,
Easy Money, you know what? Funny story. So I went to Easy Money one time. Steve Carino's kid, Colby, he'd bring Colby by when Colby was like 5 years old, 6 years old to the shows. And Steve Carino was the king of old school Steve Carino. So I think for Colby's birthday, I wanted some ring gear made, and I hit up Easy Money, and I said, can you make some ring gear, but instead of king of old school Steve Carino with the SC logo, it's got to be the prince of preschool Colby Carino with a CC. And I got him his first ever ring gear that fit him when he was like 6 years old, and he eventually got into the business. So I've always been proud to be the first person that ever, that got the ring gear for him. But that was Easy Money. Yeah, he was real talented at that.
Please tell me he still got that gear from when he was 6 years old.
I hope he does. I think I brought it up on Twitter a year or two ago, and I believe he said he still does. If I asked him, I believe he said he still does. I hope he does.
That's awesome. And it's funny because you changed it to Prince, and that's exactly what I changed my name to, was Prince Ayatollah, I believe, at the time. I know that's what it was. But from the island of flavor and funk. And that was where I was built from. And I came out, I had some long tights on now, and they were kind of bare bottom. They went out at the bottom. And I had one of my boxing robes that I used to fight in that was done when I was boxing. I was going to the ring in Ric Flair tight robes. Now it may sound unfair for me to say that, but I wasn't in a bathrobe like those guys you see in the stands on the shows trying to be Ric Flair and they go get a little boy. But no, I was paying money to have a seamstress make my gear. And when I say my gear, I'm talking about specifically my interest gear when I was boxing. So I got three, 4 robes that were money. I'm talking about money, and it looked good. And so, and it just got better as time went on. And so I took one of those robes and I made it a half robe since I was going to wear some long pants to wrestle in. And this is all back to that epiphany that you talk about, or that moment of when I knew after that match was done. I don't even think I won. But after that match was done, because I try to teach kids today that winning doesn't matter. It's how you do everything. It's how you win. It's how you lose. It's all of those things and more that makes a difference about you, your character, and where you're trying to go and whatnot. So when I got out the ring, man, my grandpa, if you will, the Grand Wizard, Danny Davis, he came out. And Danny Davis never leaves his office. It's very rare that Danny leaves his office. And so it was like he met me coming through the curtain, waiting for me to enter, and he came walking like a man on a mission. And he looked at me And he took, he had to look up at me because he's only like 5'6". He looked at me while he's chewing that gum as fast as a doggone sailor on the USS Intrepid. He points his finger up at me, and I'm thinking he's about to get on me. And he says, "Great effing job. Great effing, this is my second match. Great effing job. You were born for this business. Do you hear me? You were born for this business. That's why we brought you back. Great effing job." And I believe I shed a tear that night. I just couldn't believe it because he was so intimidating. Have you ever been scared of someone that's smaller than you? Like, have you?
I think I have. Yeah, I don't know that size matters. I think it's somebody's presence and kind of just their vibe, their flavor, and how they carry themselves and what they might be capable of. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I mean, look, Taz he's in a league of his own, okay? We know he had all of you crapping turds over in ECW, but when it comes to Danny Davis, man, and like I've had to fight, like I said, I was a fighter, I was a boxer, I was an officer, I had to take people down and do all the stuff. But yeah, as you said, he had such an intimidating presence. And I love him to this day. I love Danny Davis. And but he had such a presence, man. It was like, you don't want to piss this guy off. But when he said that to me, it meant the world. And so it was right then that I knew. Like, it was a confirmation. If you ever needed a confirmation, well, when you got somebody like Danny Davis, and then you got Jim Cornette co-signing it, because Jim Cornette has hopped off a commentary, and he's in his little wobble that he does when he tries to do a little run fast. He runs through the curtain right while Danny's talking to me, and he gives me a hug and a kiss. Elijah, my boy, excellent job. Prince of Flavor and Funk. I love it. I got to get back out there. I'll talk to you later. So, it was that moment, really, man, that I believe in as I look back on it. It was like, man, that's the moment that gave me that confirmation that it was what I needed to hear, to know that everything that I had done, the decisions that I made, I had coworkers, officers, corrections officers, police officers, you name it, family, friends. They thought it was the dumbest thing in the world for me to take that leap of faith. But to anyone who's listening, when it's time for you to make a leap, understand that others, they are not there believing that when you jump off, you're going to rise. They simply believe that you're going to fall. And it's up to you to have enough faith in yourself to rise above, as old John Cena would say, rise above that hate. And it not be hate. Some of it's concern, because people do genuinely care. But you let them know you're going to be all right, and just support me. Even if I fall, just support me. Be there to help me up. But I was more determined than ever, and I had somebody backing me that a lot of people don't know, and they don't choose to know, and they may not want to know, or whatever the case may be. But I had an ace in my pocket, Daddy. I still got him to this day.
We're coming towards the end of a great interview with you, man, and I'd love to have you on again if you'd be willing. I have one or two more quick questions, and this one I want to get in there because it's a follow through or a follow up on the fact that, not coming up through the indies, but instead starting right in the WWE system. And then you were at a point where you transitioned and you went from the WWE system and then you went to TNA. And I guess I wanted to phrase this question to you because you lived that situation. I wanted to phrase it to you very specifically. And I wanted to ask, as somebody who grew up a wrestling fan, so knowing what was good, knowing what they liked, having your influences, but you didn't go through a territory or the indies. You started in WWE. Then you go to TNA, and that's kind of your second big taste in the industry. The question, I guess, would be, what would you tell people who are not familiar with, they didn't go through one or the other or either system? They only kind of know it from the outside looking in as an observer, as an onlooker. What would you say are the main or major differences that you noticed between the WWE machine and the way things worked in TNA? A major or two major differences that might not be obvious and that people might not think about.
Oh, stop it already. One and two differences? Come on, man. Serious. As Lisa Marone Vachon would say, if y'all don't know, that's Victoria. Seriously. It's night and day. Should we just start with catering? I mean, like hell, but no, it's night and day. The difference was because again, WWE is the machine, and it's going to be like that until we're gone. If unless old Triple H decides to sell the place, but it's going to be that way. WWE is, like it or not, they are the Walt Disney. They're Disney World. They'll build Six Flags, they'll build La La Land, they'll build Kings Island, they'll build this, that, and the other. But there's only one Disneyland, and Vince is the Walt Disney of the WWE. So we see how those, the difference in Disneyland is compared to everywhere else, including Universal Studios. And it's funny because you look at that and it's like, yeah, man, Universal's cool, but Disneyland kills all the time. Disney World kills all the time. It's like, it's just the way they have things fine-tuned. In WWE, the big difference always, I would imagine to this day, but the difference was that there was a decision maker. That decision being Vince McMahon. And man, I remember Vince being out there. Vince would listen to your music before you even had it played for your interest. And he listened to it with you, or he'd have them to play it over the loudspeaker, and play your Titantron. Like he was so hands-on with everything. And I understand that some of the power has been shifted now to Triple H, but Vince McMahon was the difference. He will always be the difference as long as he's, a part of the WWE and has breath in his body. I don't see him being his father and moving on, cashing in all his stock and selling his ownership and moving. I don't see Vince doing it. I see Vince running that place until he is gone. He'll be in a hospital bed, still, with a headpiece on and with a headset on. Still, I'm telling you, man, because that's just one determined guy. And you want to have the work ethic that he has. We've seen what he's done from just back, from the first WrestleMania, the history that we all have, become accustomed to knowing. So, yeah, long story short, Vince McMahon was the biggest difference. I ain't going to even talk about catering. But Vince McMahon was the biggest difference. But I always would tell people on the young guys that I deal with today, who may ask me a question, the atmosphere in TNA was so much better. The atmosphere in TNA was more family oriented. It was more togetherness. Nobody's walking on eggshells. So you had more freedom to be in TNA than you did up in WWE. Up in WWE, they had people spying on you. They had referees spying on you, hiding out in the parking lot, writing your name down if you went missing, or somebody. It was just so much going on at the time that I personally experienced, so I can talk about it. But those were just some of the differences.
It's amazing. Dude, if you'd be cool with it, I'd love to have you on again sometime soon. Yeah. For now, though, I want to make sure that people know exactly what you're up to lately, any projects, any interests, anything that you have going on now and in the near future. I want you to let people know about it. Plug anything that you want to plug, and especially put over your social media, because I want people to be able to be in touch with you.
Well, I certainly appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share this. But everybody, if you don't know, you can follow your Pope, not his Pope, their Pope, but your Pope. You can follow me on Twitter as well as on Instagram by typing in at DA, not the, DA Black Pope. And that's for Instagram and Twitter at the Black Pope. As well as on Facebook, you can find me by typing in my given name, Elijah Burke. So that's facebook.com /Elijah Burke. Also, I got appearances coming up with ARW. You'll probably see me tweet out and all those, share those flyers and stuff. ARW in Cocoa, Florida, who I've been working with for all of the year, as well as USA Pro Wrestling. And I believe I'll be on hand with the Rock and Roll Express and Scott Steiner and Carlito and all of us guys. And that will be in February as well as in April. And I can't give you all of the specific times, but like I said, if you follow me on those social media sites, I'll let you know all about it. But that USA Pro Wrestling is February the 15th. ARW will be in February, March, and April for both of those as well. I got something coming up in the neck of the woods, all the way in Revolution Championship Wrestling, and you can find them on Facebook as well, Revolution RCW. Hey, but last but not least, something that's near and dear to me that I want to share with you guys is my charity. My charity is called the Love Alive Charity. We are centered and based out of Jacksonville, Florida, and we deal with Jacksonville and the surrounding areas and helping the homeless, feeding the homeless, clothing the homeless, assisting those who are living in shelters by no means of their own, but are no fault of their own. The women in battered shelters, I talked to you a little bit about that earlier. That's what my charity does. You can check out my charity, love-alive.org, love subtraction sign alive.org. My charity's 8th annual event is coming up on January the 18th. As a matter of fact, and again, we take care of the kids. We take care of the grown-ups. We get the kids book bags filled with school supplies. We give out blankets for the people that are sleeping on the streets. We give out scullies, gloves, socks, you name it. We do whatever we can to help make a difference in our impoverished neighborhoods in Jacksonville and surrounding areas. And more importantly, unlike other charities, we're not feeding them out of a soup truck. Nor are we feeding them, cold sandwiches or peanut butter sandwiches, but we are feeding them directly out of Burger King. And with that being said, I want you to understand that my charity is not a government-funded charity. Hopefully one day we will be, but right now the charity is funded off of the public donations, which is why I shared my website with you, love-alive.org. Please go check it out. Donate $1 if you can, because it's funded by me and any of you that decide to do so. We have 300 to 400 people that lines up around a block for hours just to get a hot meal out of Burger King, get some clothes, maybe grab a pair of shoes if their size is out there. And it's really something cool. You can go follow my charity at the Love Alive Charity on Facebook and at Love Alive Inc. on Twitter, as well as Love Alive Charity on Instagram. Also, last but not least, my charities event, which will happen on January the 18th at noon. That night, we will have our fundraising Duval Brawl 2, which is going to feature myself, Tyrus, y'all know him, a.k.a. Brodus Clay, the WWE legends and soon-to-be Hall of Famers, the Headbangers. Going to have Rebel from TNA/Impact, as well as JB Cool and FEW stars. And I'm going to have a guest that's going to appear, none other than Thunderbolt Larry Hamilton, who has, of course, been all over the scene. So if you're in or near, or if you're not going to be there, again, man, donate something to help us out. And we'll try to make sure you catch it, because I'll be sure to share it, and we're going to live stream it. We're going to have a lot of fun. Hey, Stud Man, this has been great. Thanks for having me on, man.
Dude, thank you for being on that show. Sounds like fire. And the charity, super admirable and honorable, man. That's awesome. Everything you're doing for your town, man, for Jacksonville. I love Jacksonville just because I've been a Jaguars fan since day zero, since inception day. My initials are JAG. My original ring name from 91 to 95 was Joey Jaguar from West Palm Beach, Florida. So right during that time, when they said there was going to be a football team in Florida called the Jaguars, I said, sign me up. And
wow.
So I've been there since the very beginning. And unfortunately only got to visit once or twice with ECW, but have always had a special place in my heart for Jacksonville. The stuff that you're doing, man, I don't think you can be commended enough for it. It sounds, you sound passionate about everything you do, wrestling and otherwise, but definitely it seems like there's a really big place in your heart, which seems like a big place in and of itself for this charity. And I really wish all the best for it. And for you, man, dude, thank you so much for coming on with me tonight. It's been great. It's always a pleasure talking to you, man. And
Yes,
you're
sir.
a real gentleman. You're super down to earth. It's just a walk in the park, man. It's a real pleasure to talk with you. And I hope you have an awesome weekend.
Well, with that being said, I appreciate it. And if I ever get around to doing it your way, I'll be reaching out to you, because Pope's Point of View podcast has already dropped. By the time that you heard this, every Saturday morning, 9:05 Eastern time, you can hear your boy. If you enjoyed this, then you certainly want to check out Pope's Point of View. It's going to be available on all of your podcast platforms. We're talking Spreaker, we're talking Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, name it. Go out there, subscribe to Pope's Point of View podcast with Elijah Burke.
Everybody listen to the podcast. Everybody hit him up on Twitter and Instagram. And please, not trying to do the math on it, but just, it's really irregardless of the number. But if everybody listening to this or downloading this, for example, if you donate $1 to Elijah's charity, maybe at least 100 people get a real nice hot meal. And think about you contributing to something that 100 people can have their lives enriched. So please do what you can. 100 pennies versus helping impact the life of 100 people. You know which end is up on that. But Elijah, thank you so much. I really do want to have you on again if it's the kind of thing you'd be interested in.
Yeah, man.
Awesome.
We will certainly do it again. It's fun. It's easy. Next time, look, I couldn't even finish my cup of coffee here, okay? So you're not going to be having Pope on here doing all this talking. You gonna talk to me next time, okay? Because I'm not going to sit here and start going into all these run-ons. But yeah, man, it was cool. I'm sorry that it took so long for us to finally link up and do it, but I'm glad that it did, because it happened at its appointed time, and it was
man. Hey, my school of thought is let a man preach if he can pontificate, and let a man talk when he tells the truth. So,
hey, I like it. That's so good. Okay.
Thank you so much, man.
Yes, sir.
Dude.
You have a good one, my brother. Blessings.
Thank you so much. You as well. And we'll have more 69-minute eargasm after this. Ladies and gentlemen, 69-minute eargasm, the portion of the show where we look at pro wrestling history and a look back at this day in the history of professional wrestling. So, for a look at all things important for the 16th of December, we go to historian and archivist, the one and only John Pantosi.
Okay, Joel, today we will go all the way back to 1880 in Boston, Massachusetts. John McMahon, no relation to Vince, defeated H.M. Duffer to win the American Collar and Elbow title. 1917 in Humboldt, Iowa, the greatest wrestler who ever lived, Frank Gotch, died at the age of 39, allegedly from kidney failure. Now we jump to 1949 in Houston, Texas. Vern Gagne defeats Leo Newman to win the NWA Texas Heavyweight title. We jump to 1963 in Indio, California. Edouard Carpentier won the World Wrestling Association World Heavyweight title by forfeit when Bearcat Wright no-showed his title defense. The referee supposedly was going to be Judo Gene LaBelle, and Bearcat Wright didn't want any part of that match. Okay, 1970, Honolulu, Hawaii. Billy Robinson defeats the Destroyer, Dick Fire, for the Hawaii version of the NWA North American Heavyweight. 1971, in Tampa, Florida, Ole Anderson defeats Jack Briscoe for the NWA Florida television title. 1977, Los Angeles, California, the Canadian won the NWA America's Heavyweight title by defeating Chavo Guerrero. The Canadian was Roddy Piper. We jump to 1990, WCW Starrcade in St. Louis. Sting defeats the Black Scorpion in a steel cage match to retain the NWA World Heavyweight title. Dick the Bruiser was the special referee, and unmasked after the bout, the Black Scorpion turned out to be none other than Ric Flair. 2007, finally in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Edge defeats Batista and The Undertaker to win the WWE Championship. And that wraps it up for December 16th.
Thank you very much, John. And we'll have more 69-minute eargasm after this.
Graplex message. Hi, Ray Dacron is my name, and the name of the CEO of Graplex. So there's this thing, t-shirts. Have you ever seen one? What about feel, though? But have you ever, for example, held one? Or even worn it on your own body? Well, then, here's a t-shirt. This is one made to celebrate the sports entertainment enthusiast in all of us. Even down to the color. Raw red. Raw red. Yes, it's available for purchase. Sure. What size are you? Now available at ProWrestlingTees.com/Joel Gertner.